Did Jesus have to die? No, he didn't. He was killed. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First question. Did you or will you eat a meal today? Yes, you probably did. And your meal was consistent of what? I'm guessing something that was once a plant and maybe something that was once an animal. In other words, something that was alive, but in order of you to eat it, it had to die. The fruit or vegetable had to be harvested, pulled from the soil, picked from the tree. The animal had to be butchered. That's how it works. You have to eat to stay alive. For you to eat, something has to die. Your life is dependent on something else's death. Death is an engine of life. Think about what happened when someone dies doing something heroic, like rescuing someone in trouble or standing up to injustice. We say that their death was inspiring. What does it mean to inspire? It means to breathe in life, to give life. Or take decisions. In the winter, everything dies, and then in the spring, it comes back to life. It literally springs forth. Or take your cells. You have many trillion cells in your body right now. They constantly are dying while your body is producing new ones to replace them. About 3 million cells in your body die and are replaced every minute. Death is the engine of life, all around us, all the time. This death and life rhythm is built in the fabric of creation. So when you read the Bible it tells the story of a death that is somehow an engine of a new life in the world, this is not a new story. This is not a new truth. This is how the world has worked for a long, long time. This idea, this truth, did not come out of nowhere. Obviously, then, it's not a surprise that the stories about death and resurrection have been told in lots of cultures across the ages, which leads to an observation about the Bible. The writers of the Bible bear witness to how things are. That's why these stories and images and metaphors and ideas have resonated so deeply with so many people across the ages. Life is a mysterious sufferings does not make you feel like your heart is caved in. Humans are capable of essentially good and bad acts. People do reflect the divine image. How'd you like? In some traditions that emphasize the importance of the Bible, people can easily pick up that idea that if something is in the Bible, it's true. But it works the other way around. It's in the Bible because the Bible writers were witness to the truth larger than any Bible or tribe or religion. Which leads us to the question about why Jesus died. One response, he was killed. Betrayed, executed, hung on a cross, Jesus was killed. That's why the story we have in the Gospels, you have to start an actual story, not with all those theories and systems that you have created. You have to set aside the assumptions about why some things had to happen and not happen or whatever. You have to let it unfold like an actual story unfolds. In the story, we're told he came and taught and called disciples and healed and preached, confronted and injustice and indifference of religious, military, economic machine of his day. It was a violent, unstable, volatile time, and threats to the security of the empire were dealt with swiftly and severely, he was killed. That's how the story goes. Then, according to Gospels, he appeared later in his disciples. He told them to make students immersing those disciples in the Trinitarian love of God. And then he was gone. His followers, of course, struggled to make sense of what just happened. That's how life is. We experience things. And when we interpret them, we do our best to explain them. And we look for the meaning of them. We ask, what does it mean? The Bible was written by people with perspectives grounded in their cultures and times and places. They're having experience and undergoing events, then processing and interpreting those events and experiences. The Bible, that's what the Bible is. It wasn't written by a third party somewhere in the sky who passively and objectively tells you what the plan is. It was written by real people in real places, real times, doing their best to make sense of it all. You can see why questions like, why did God do all that in that way will never give you satisfying answers. It's the wrong question, which will always result in an unsatisfying answer. The first Christians interpreted Jesus' life and death through the lens of a sacrificial system because that was one of their primary lenses for understanding God's life, faith, and events they had experienced. They believed God was dwelled unequally in the temple of Jerusalem. The city went to the offering of sacrifices. This was not unusual throughout the ancient world. Temples were understood to be places where God resided, and you went to them to offer gifts and offerings to honor and keep their favor. God didn't set up the sacrificial system, people did. The sacrificial system involved as humans develop rituals and rites. Rituals and rites to help them deal with guilt and fear. That is why the book of Leviticus is so radical and progressive. In it, you can actually know where you stand with God. You can have peace with God, and a truly revolutionary idea at the time. At first, there were a belief force dependent on our survival. Over those forces came personalized, so it wasn't just in the Son, it was the Son of God. And then gradually, those forces, gods were given names and personalities and attributes. And over time, this particular story emerged about one God who stood over all the others, who was doing something new in the world. God didn't need blood of sacrifices, people did. That's why the writer of the book of the Hebrews keeps talking about how God didn't need blood from animals, never did. God never did. We did. Offering sacrifices came out of a deep human need to do something about guilt and shame and haunting sense that you haven't done enough to keep God on your side. And all it takes place is unfolding story. To kill someone, to be happy with humanity. Right. So that's enough about that one. Stay with me. I'm just checking I got the right page. Oh, 264. Learning to pray. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus gives the prayer in response to requests from the one of disciples. Lord, teach us to pray, just as John the Baptist taught his disciples. Luke's version. Christianity's most famous prayer, which is taught by the disciples of Jesus himself, starts striking note. Our Father, be opening what became known as the Lord's Prayer. With those two words, Jesus was encouraging his disciples to enter into an extraordinary intimacy with God, similar to the one that he himself enjoyed. The image of God as a loving parent was not unknown in the Hebrew scriptures. As early as Exodus 4, the Lord refers to Israel as his firstborn son. Nowhere in the Old Testament, however, is the idea of God as the Father as central as it is in Jesus' teachings and telling his followers to say, Our Father. He encourages them to approach God boldly just by saying would approach a parent whose care, provision, and protection they otherwise take for granted. Reciting the Lord's Prayer was once a daily ritual in many Christian families, as shown in the illustration in Berlin dating from around 1900s, which I definitely encourage you to say the Lord's Prayer. Of the prayer is more pared down than Matthew's and includes just the 5 petitions. In Matthew's Gospel, the prayer is the focal of the Sermon on the Mount. That includes salutation, 7 petitions, familiar in Christian today, different religious traditions, and their distinctive prayers, and Jesus intended the Lord's Prayer to be for his followers to say. The early Christians recited it 3 times a day in the same way the Jews recite the 18 benedictions. Okay. So, it's interesting. I just have one thing to show you. Is the angel evil? Who knows? But it is divine.